Hey there, it's Mike Cooch with Digital Marketing Lab and Leverage. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, I'm going to share with you the most important reason that agencies are failing to grow. Now, before I get into it, I just want to let you know that in this video, I'm going to be going over a lot of metrics using some acronyms that maybe you have not been exposed to before, you may not be familiar with. And please just know that at the end of this video, I'm going to give you the option to get some resources that are going to go along with this that are going to help you really make use of what you're going to learn in this video, okay? Because we're going to get deep into it, into understanding what is causing agencies to fail to grow. All right, so what is causing agencies to fail to grow? You may be thinking, well, it's that I don't have enough sales process happening or enough marketing happening, or that I'm targeting the wrong niche. All of those things are absolutely factors in whether or not you're going to be able to grow your agency, and they're important factors, but they are symptoms. They are symptoms. And what I mean by that is that there is a root cause that is causing agencies to not fully develop their sales process or their marketing, or make sure that they have properly packaged services with the right price points. And that root cause is that they do not understand the metrics and model for success in this industry. And if you don't understand the metrics and model, if you don't have a framework, some sort of blueprint that you're working with, then you don't know what to measure. You don't know which things are working and which aren't working. And the worst thing is that you get unrealistic expectations. And when something doesn't work right away, or you perceive that it's not working right away, you don't actually know because you don't know the metrics and you don't know the model, then you quit, or you make some sort of decision to try a different service or a different niche. And this happens in the agency industry. People are ping-ponging around all over the place because they don't really understand the metrics and they don't really understand the model that comes from those metrics. In this video, we're going to get that straightened out so that you never have to worry about that again. Okay, let's go to my handy dandy digital whiteboard back here, and we're going to do a little bit of drawing here as I go to make sure that you really understand the metrics and the model of this business. Okay, the first thing that I want to show you here, LTV to CAC 3-to-1. Okay, what the heck does that mean, Mike? Well, if you aren't familiar with these numbers, I can understand that that might be a little confusing to you. Let me spell it out. LTV stands for lifetime value, the lifetime value of your customer. So if you have a customer that spends $1,000 a month and they stay with you for 6 months, that is a lifetime value of $6,000, okay? Lifetime value of your customer. CAC means customer acquisition cost. Customer acquisition cost. To me, quite possibly the most important and least understood and least accounted for and tracked metric in this industry. But here is the benchmark that I want you to be aware of. And this is not a benchmark that I've created, by the way. This is a benchmark that if you read the case studies of the most successful businesses that are out there selling to small businesses, HubSpot, Constant Contact, businesses like that, and you read from the investors, the venture capital firms that are putting hundreds of millions of dollars into these businesses, the metrics for success that they're looking for, what they tell you is you have to have a minimum of a 3-to-1 ratio of lifetime value to customer acquisition costs, a 3-to-1 ratio at a minimum. So what that means is that if it costs you $1,000 to get a customer, you have to have a lifetime value of a minimum of $3,000. If it costs you $5,000 to get a customer, it needs to be at least $15,000, that 3-to-1 ratio. So then the first question that should come out of this metric that I just showed you here is, what is your cost of customer acquisition? What is that CAC, that customer acquisition cost? If you don't know that, you can't possibly know what you need the lifetime value of your customers to be. Or we can put it the other way. What is the lifetime value of your customers? If you don't know that number, you can't possibly know how much you can afford to spend to acquire a customer and still have a viable model. Okay, so that's our first key metric. LTV to CAC 3-to-1. Okay, so let's go on to the next benchmark metric. The next one is the cost to acquire a customer, that's CAC. Well, how much can we afford to spend? What is typical in the marketplace for businesses that are out there acquiring small businesses as customers? The range that you're going to find most commonly out there in the marketplace is somewhere between $500 and $2,500 to acquire a customer. And that range, it depends on the complexity of your sales cycle, the complexity of your offer, but that range, $500 to $2,500. Now, you'll see I have a plus here, because if you're selling something more complex, that draws out the sales cycle. If you've got something that's higher ticket, it draws out the sales cycle and your customer acquisition cost goes up. And I'm going to show you some numbers here later on in this presentation that I think are going to blow your mind when it comes to how much businesses are spending to acquire customers. All right, let's move on to the next key metric, payback period. Payback period is the time it takes to recover your investment in acquiring that customer. So if you spent $5,000 to acquire a customer, but your customer was only paying you $1,000 a month, it would be 5 months, assuming that was 100% gross margin, it would be 5 months before you got your money back that you invested to acquire that customer. So what's typical? I can tell you right now, if you're selling without funding, if you're building your business and you don't have the deep pockets of a venture capital firm, 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months is typically the time period that people can make work. You've got to get your money back in 3 to 6 months. I can tell you personally, when I was building my first business, selling to small businesses, I counted on a 1-year payback period. Okay, that may seem crazy to you, but with almost no funding at all, we're just talking a little bit of friends and family money, I built that business into several millions of dollars of recurring revenue. Why? Because I understood these numbers. And so I understood that I had to invest to acquire those customers where my competitors didn't. They didn't have the patience to invest to acquire customers and wait for that payback period. So I knew I just needed to outlast them and I could spend more to acquire my customers. And that's exactly what I did. So 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months is realistic. And I'm going to show you some specific numbers here in this presentation as to how we make that work. Next is gross margin. Okay, gross margin. If you're not familiar with gross margins, that's how much money you have left over from your top line revenue, okay? Expressed on a percentage basis is what you most commonly see, so 65%. So what we're saying is that if you're selling a $1,000 service to your customers, you have to have gross profitability of that service. So you take out your cost of delivering that service, and those costs would be 35%, leaving you with 65% in gross margin. Anything less than that, it gets really, really hard to have enough money to invest in the sales and marketing and overhead of your business for growth. I'd love to see that number 70%, 75%, 80%. The higher that number goes, the easier it is to fund your business. 65% is the minimum. Next key metric here. Churn. Churn is a killer in this business. Okay, customers leaving is a killer. The hardest thing to do in this business is to get a new customer. So when you go through all that work to get a new customer and then one goes away, that kills you, right? It takes away your momentum. So what is an acceptable level of churn? 1 to 2.5% per month. 1 to 2.5% per month is key to getting off the treadmill, as I say. Okay, the treadmill that I'm referring to is you get some customers, you get some recurring revenue coming in, and then the churn catches up with you and your sales team can't produce more than the churn. And so then you end up just kind of flatlining there, just staying there, and you're on the treadmill, you're working like crazy, you're running like crazy, but you're never really getting ahead. For most agencies, that happens at a real low level because their services have a lot of churn. For the best businesses, we would love to see that number close to 1%. Some businesses get even lower, most of them don't, but 1 to 2.5% is a good metric. All right, so now let's get into modeling these numbers, okay, so that we can see the impact on the business and we can see where most digital agencies are doing this wrong. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see these numbers, okay, but what I'm doing here is some scenario modeling, and I say agency versus marketing systems provider. For those of you who are not familiar with me, I hate the agency model. I use that language, agency, because that's what most people know. But I believe for success, you have to be a marketing systems provider. Hang around me a little bit longer and you'll know exactly what that is. I'm not going to get too into detail here in this video, but let me just show you some of the difference here in a typical agency where people are doing some sort of project work and you're doing some sort of custom project work for your customers. Maybe you're doing a website design or a Facebook campaign launch or whatever it is. But let's just say that that is a $5,000 project. And let's say you're running your business really well, which not everybody is, but let's say you're running your business really well, and before you even start work, you make sure you get paid in advance for the entire cost of the project up front. That's great, because now you have the cash to use to grow your business, right? So you got $5,000 up front. That's awesome. Now, it's custom work. It's custom work. That means you did proposals. You probably had a little bit of a drawn out sales process. So I'm going to put you on the upper end of that range for the customer acquisition cost, CAC. And I'm going to say that you spent $2,500 to get that customer. Now, you may not believe that you're spending $2,500 to get that customer. We'll do the math in a minute and we'll see if I'm right. The AMRR, so the average monthly recurring revenue that you get from that customer, is 0. This is a one-time project. You're not getting any recurring revenue from them. One-time project, 0. Your gross margins, because it's custom work, most agencies are operating at around 50% gross margins. Remember when I told you that we need at least 65? Most doing custom work are operating around 50%. Some of them, unfortunately, will drop well below that because those custom projects get dragged on, the customer changes their minds on some things, demands some rework, and you don't have good processes to handle that and make sure that you're billing for it. And so that number, unfortunately, can be generous. But that leaves you with a gross margin of $2,500. So $2,500 after the cost of service delivery that you have to go back into paying for the rest of your business. So the good news is you got your cash up front. So your payback period is immediate. And this is why agencies get stuck in this model, is because they see a $5,000 check come in and they get all excited and they go, oh, look at all that money I just got. It's addicting. And it's addicting, especially when you don't know your model. So they get their $2,500, their payback period is immediate. Now, unfortunately, the churn eats them alive. Anybody doing this understands that maybe some of those customers come back and do an additional project with you. Many of them don't. We're going to say that our monthly churn is 50%. So what I'm saying there is essentially you took a couple months maybe, or even just 30 days to do that job. A solid half of your customers within that month are now going to go on and not come back from you and buy anything from you. That means that the lifetime value of a customer, and I'll show you in the resources that I give to you after this video how to calculate this, the lifetime value of a customer is $5,000. Okay, and if you want to calculate that to understand that, you take this $2,500 gross margin and you divide it by 0.5. Okay, 2,500 divided by 0.5 will give you $5,000. That's the lifetime value of the customer, which you can see up here. That makes sense because it's a customer that is paying you once for a project and then going away, okay? So what is your LTV to CAC? Remember, this metric needs to be 3-to-1 at a minimum to make this business model work. In this case, it's not. It's not even close. It's 2-to-1. 2-to-1, we're getting $5,000. We're paying $2,500 to get the customer. That gives us a 2-to-1. Now, if you didn't do a good job of collecting all of your money up front, now what happens? We're talking about receivables, chasing down our customers for payment. It takes them a month and a half to pay after you completed the project, which took you a month to do. Now you're 2.5 months behind on your cash cycle. Now you're in big trouble, right? Everybody that's been in agency business doing custom work recognizes what I'm talking about. Okay, that model stinks. That's why I hate the agency business the way that most people do it. Let's go on to a slightly different agency model. You're gonna say, no, Mike, I do an ad agency model. I manage Facebook campaigns for people and I get $2,500 a month and it's recurring, Mike. Awesome. Okay, so in this scenario, let's pretend that you don't get any additional cash up front. You just get that $2,500 monthly payment. Okay, so you got your $2,500 monthly payment And I'm sorry, similar customer acquisition cost, $2,500. Selling these agency customers takes a little while. $2,500, you're getting your $2,500 in recurring monthly. You have gross margins, let's say 55%. You've got a little bit better margins, but the ad agency business, when you're only getting paid $2,500 a month from a small business, is really not that great of margins. You've got somebody that's got to sit down and manage campaigns, create campaigns, report metrics, all that stuff. 55%. It's better than custom work, but it's not great. So that gives you gross margin dollars of $1,375. A 1.8 month payback period, not bad at all, okay? Because you got your gross margins of $1,375, so that's the money you actually get in your pocket. You divide that into your customer acquisition costs, and that tells you that in less than 2 months, you're paying back the cost that you had to acquire that customer. Not bad. Now, churn though, 20% still in this business, 20%. Okay. Again, if you've been in this business, you know that those customers, they stick around for 5 months, maybe 6 months, something like that. And then you're trying to justify that your ads are actually working and the fact that they're paying you that much money for management when their ad budget is only $1,500 and they're paying you $2,500 for management. It gets to be hard to keep those customers around, which is why there are not very many agencies running ads for small businesses doing it in any sort of custom way. If you're doing this for larger businesses, okay. If you're doing this for e-commerce businesses that are doing $10, $15 million a year in e-commerce sales, it's necessary for them to have somebody managing those ads. But most small businesses, it stinks, okay? So 20% churn, that gives you a lifetime value of $6,875. Again, how to calculate that number? You take $1,375, you divide it by 0.2, the 20%. That will give you $6,875. You've now got a CAC, an LTV to CAC of 2.75 to 1. We're getting closer to that 3 to 1 model, but we're still not there, which is why so many of these ad agencies struggle to really grow. 2.75 to 1 is not 3 to 1, okay? Let's move on then and start talking about more of my favorite model, that MSP model. I call it a marketing systems provider, And some of the key characteristics of this model is that you're charging a lower price point, you're building your service more on technology and automation, you're doing almost no custom work whatsoever. Because of your lower price point, your customer acquisition cost comes down a bit, right? Small businesses are easier to sell to when you're charging at $497 a month than $2,500 a month, okay? So we've dropped that customer acquisition cost down to $1,500. That's critical that we're able to do that. Okay, $497 is our monthly recurring revenue. Now, because it's based off of technology and automation, our margins are now 70% versus the 50 and the 55 that we talked about before, giving us gross margins of $348. Our payback period is a little longer here, 4.3 months. We're still in that 3 to 6 month range though. Now, this is where most people get scared away. They see that number and they panic and they think, Mike, I can't do that. I need my $5,000 checks up front. There are strategies to get paid up front, but understanding this number and why it makes sense, let's follow these numbers down. Churn, down to 2%. Okay, I showed you those metrics before, 1 to 2.5%. If I can get that down to 2%, look at the lifetime value of my customer, $17,400. This means that customers at 2% churn, customers stay with me for a few years. In my experience, that's exactly how it happens at these price points. Customers stick around for a few years, 4 years, 5 years. They get ridiculously profitable. That lifetime value goes way up. Look at our LTV to CAC, 11.6 to 1. When you understand that math, you go, oh wow, I can afford to eat some cost up here and be a little bit patient on getting my payback if I can get 11.6 to 1 LTV to CAC. It's a totally different business. The value that's created is totally different. Now, let's say, hey, Mike, I don't believe you can get that 2% churn. No problem. I would actually say that typical in this business for most service providers is going to be more like a 5% churn. So if I had $100,000 in monthly recurring revenue, $5,000 would disappear that month. $5,000 in recurring revenue, so around 10 of my customers would cancel, okay? So if that were the case, still, look, we still have a 4.64 to 1 LTV to CAC. We still have a lifetime customer value of almost $7,000, okay? It's still a really viable model, much better than the first two that we looked at. Now, let's just say that you understand all this and you go, Mike, I want to recover my money more quickly, and we figure out a way to get $1,000 up front. Just $1,000 up front. You've got some sort of training package, startup fee, a marketing audit that you do, a planning service that you provide for them. Maybe you just get them to prepay for some months in advance. You get $1,000 up front. The rest of these numbers stay the same. Now you've gone to a 5.3 to 1 LTV to CAC. Remember, anything over 3 to 1, you're winning, okay? Now look at our payback period is only 1.4 months. Only 1.4 months, which when you go back to that original agency model, if you had any issues with invoicing, billing, collections, in that business, you're already past 1.4 months realistically. I gave the huge benefit of the doubt in that model to say you were able to collect all your cash up front. The far majority of agencies don't do that, okay? They invoice and they wait more than 1.4 months. In this model at $497, we don't do any invoicing. People fill out forms on your website, put in their credit card, and they get billed every single month on autopilot, okay? Okay, so let's take a look at how these numbers work then in terms of acquiring customers. We have to understand how these numbers play out so that we develop realistic sales and marketing systems. We measure what matters and we make sure that we stick with it long enough to see results. Because again, going back to the beginning of this presentation, unrealistic expectations is what kills most agencies. They do a little bit of marketing for a while, they do a little bit of selling for a while, they don't see immediate wins, and they don't understand the math here, and so they make the mistake of quitting before they ever have the opportunity to see the math work in their favor. Because let's say that we're doing $2,500 in advertising in a month, $2,500, and it's costing us $5 to get a lead. Okay, not bad. So that's 500 leads that we generate at $5 each, spending $2,500 for a month in advertising, okay? Now, let's say that 5% of those become qualified prospects. What do I mean by qualified prospects? Maybe they're booking time on your calendar to talk to you. They respond to your phone call when you do a follow-up call to them and you actually get a conversation with them, whatever your sales process dictates. But 25 of those are actually qualified prospects, 5%, which is not an unrealistic number. Some of you could argue that's a little low. Some of you would say that's just fine. And I could show you all kinds of metrics that say that that's just fine. But if we did that, that means that they're now $100 each, $100 per qualified prospect. So let's keep going down our funnel here. Let's say 20% of those actually become an opportunity. What I mean by an opportunity is somebody that is ready to buy here in the next sales cycle. So if your sales cycle is typically 30 days, somebody that is ready to make a decision here in the next 30 days, that's an opportunity, okay? 5 of those, 20% equals 5, which now means that they've cost us $500 a piece to get to that point, okay? Now, 30% of those, let's say 30% of those, you're a pretty good closer, actually become customers. That's now $1,666 per customer, okay? And it's actually, if you do the math, 30% of 5, it's like 1.5. So it's really like 1.5 at $1,666 each. Now, this is before salesperson costs. So if you're paying a salesperson, you're paying any sort of commission, you've got that on top of this. This is just the marketing costs that we spent to get those leads, right? The Facebook ads we were running or whatever we were doing. So now that we understand this math and we can see this is a realistic funnel. If you don't think it's a realistic funnel, you're going to make bad decisions about your business. And let me show you how I know it's realistic. Look at these numbers. HubSpot. How much do you think HubSpot invests to acquire a customer? Look at this number. $6,880. $6,880 to acquire a customer. And that was actually back in 2012. See that? That was actually back in 2012. Now, They have an average monthly recurring revenue of $583, 81% margins, giving them $472 in gross margins. It takes them 14.5 months for their payback period. But they're okay with that because they've raised hundreds of millions of dollars to invest, and they have a $23,775 lifetime value, giving them a 3.5 to 1 lifetime value to CAC. Their investors see that number and they go, hey, we'll give you $150 million to invest in sales and marketing, right? So your well-funded competitors understand these numbers and are willing to invest to acquire a customer. Now that's HubSpot. What about on the other end of the spectrum? Constant Contact. Again, in 2012, Constant Contact gets $0 up front, $450 to acquire a customer. So they're down by that price point, or the customer acquisition cost that we were saying is the very low end of the spectrum, $500. But look at their average monthly recurring revenue. It's only $39. It's only $39. But 72% margins, 4.3 month payback period. They have 2.2% churn. Their customers were worth $1,276 lifetime value, giving them a 2.8 to 1 lifetime value to customer acquisition cost. Constant Contact had to figure some things out to get past this, and I'll share with you in my resources actually a great little write-up about what they had to do, because it shows you some of the differences in sales and marketing approaches that allow them to get that customer acquisition cost down there. It's important for us to learn from, okay? A typical SaaS software provider selling to the small business marketplace, this is data that I got from VC firm research, okay? $1,500 is what they spend to acquire a customer, $200 average monthly recurring revenue, and it's typically in the small business space between 97 and 197, 80% gross margins, 160% gross margin dollars, 9.3 month payback period, 3% churn, 5,333 lifetime value, 3.55 to 1 lifetime value to customer acquisition costs. That's pretty typical in the small business space. Now you may be saying, Mike, those are 2012 numbers. Why, or 2012 numbers. Why don't you have more updated numbers? Good question. I'm going to share with you in those resources again, what happened to HubSpot's customer acquisition cost since then? You may be thinking, well, Mike, of course it's come down since then. They've learned a ton about how to sell to small businesses. They do all that amazing inbound marketing, right? It's a really good question. And what's interesting for you to know is that while HubSpot was still disclosing those numbers, they were going up. They continued to go up. And I say while they were disclosing those numbers, because they stopped disclosing those numbers. Now, why would HubSpot stop disclosing those numbers publicly? I don't think it's because the numbers have been going down and their marketing has been working really well. That's my guess. So if you understand the metrics and the model that we went through, okay, then you will know that to succeed in this business, what you need is an obsession with two things. How do I lower that customer acquisition cost? And how do I grow that lifetime value? That's what this business is all about. If you don't know those metrics that we just went through though, if you don't know those benchmarks, and if you don't have a model for how you are going to move a lead to a qualified prospect, to an opportunity, to a closed deal, to then retain them long enough to get that lifetime value to at least a 3-to-1 ratio over your customer acquisition costs, then there's no way that you're going to grow a business in this space, because you're never going to have realistic expectations about what it takes. You're never going to make the investment necessary, and you're going to continue to sell one-off projects that don't get you anywhere. They're addicting because you get some cash coming in up front, but then those customers churn and you're stuck. You're repeating this cycle over and over and over again. I call it the cycle of doom in the agency business. How do we get out of it? I'd love to share with you a bunch of resources around these numbers, some case studies with you, some more videos and tools to help you model this yourself, all right? Head over to digitalmarketinglab.io/SaaS. What does SaaS stand for? Systems as a service. Not software as a service, systems as a service. As I said, I believe that the agency industry is really the marketing systems business. Marketing systems provider, MSP, systems as a service is what this industry is all about. Again, if you'd like some resources to help you go through the numbers and the model that we just went through to make sure you really understand them and to be able to use them at your business, go over here. Let me give you some additional resources and additional training to help you out, okay? I hope that this video helped you. Again, it's all about knowing your numbers. If you know your numbers, then you can construct a realistic model with realistic expectations. You can know, here's how much I need to invest to make sure that I have a real sales and marketing process that can give me the customers that I need for success. And you can stop relying on those one-off projects that seem sexy, but are really draining your business of any sort of potential, okay? This is Mike Cooch. Thank you so much for stopping by. Again, digitalmarketinglab.io/SAAS. If you'd like those additional resources, please ask any questions, leave any comments below this video. I'd love to hear from you. Give it a like, give it a share if there's anybody that you think would benefit from it. And please do subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you on the next video. All right? Thank you so much. Take care.